Hello. Okay, so resume tayo ng discussion. Okay, so we are so far done no with the basics of running the control. So again, ang ginagawa natin is una, mag-run tayo ng control. And depende sa analyte no kung siya ba ay gagamit ng tri-level na control o kaya ng qualitative lang na control. Pero usually pag chemistry, we often use tri-level no na control. Okay, pagdating sa chemistry. Although sa ibang departments ng laboratory, minsan qualitative lang yung control nila. Pero usually most of the time pag chemistry, kadalasan we use a tri-level na control. Okay? However, kapag nirun na natin yung control, so again, ang gagawin natin, mag-run tayo ng control. And syempre, kung hindi pasok, gagamitin natin yung mga solutions kanina. Okay, yung binasa natin mga possible solutions for the quality control problems natin. Pero what if okay naman yung control natin? What if the controls are within the acceptable na range? Ito kasi mga to, gagawin lang natin to kapag hindi within the acceptable range. Pero what if yung control mo is within the acceptable range naman? Okay, ano na gagawin natin? Well, una, pwede ka na makapaglabas ng result. Pero aside from that, we still have something to do. Ano yung gagawin natin? Ipa-plot natin. Ipa-plot natin, ire-record at ipa-plot natin yung result ng ating control. And usually, ano yung pinakamadalas na chart na ginagamit natin? Most commonly used na chart for evaluating or for recording and plotting your controls, we often use the Levy-Jennings chart or what we call the LJ na chart. Okay, so LJ na chart. Okay, so LJ chart, okay, for recording and reporting, no? Recording and plotting rather, yung ating mga control. And this is otherwise known pala nga pala, no, as the Shewhart na plot. Okay, so other name ng ating LJ chart, tinatawag siyang Shewhart na plot. And this is the most commonly used. Okay, siya yung most commonly used natin, na chart for quality control. Okay? So dito, para saan ba? Bakit ba natin pinaplot? Hindi pa ba sapat, ma'am? Hindi pa ba sapat na within the normal range naman yung control natin? Why do we still have to record and plot it using the LJ na chart? Okay? So ginagamit to para makapag-detect tayo ng mga errors. Okay? So dito, bago tayo mag-detect ng error, pag-usapan muna natin, paano ba dinodrawing yung LJ chart natin? Okay, ang LJ chart natin, kagaya ng mga ordinaryong graph, meron din silang x-axis at meron din silang y-axis. And speaking of which, recall question. Ano ba usually ang nakalagay sa x-axis at ano ba usually ang nakalagay sa y-axis? Huwag kakalimutan ha, ang x-axis, dyan kadalasan nilalagay yung tinatawag nating independent variable. Okay, independent variable. Yung x-axis, yan yung nakahiga, horizontal. Okay, yan yung horizontal, no? Na axis, horizontal na axis yan. And take note, dyan natin nilalagay yung tinatawag nating independent variable. So, sa case ng Levy-Jennings chart natin, sino ang nilalagay or ano ang nilalagay natin sa x-axis ng LJ chart natin? Ang independent variable natin sa LJ chart is usually the date or the time kung kailan ka nag-run ng control. So, date or time kung kailan ka nag-run ng control, we usually put that on the x-axis of the LJ na chart. Okay? Pero so far, recall question dyan yung variable, ha? Kung anong variable ang nilalagay sa x-axis, we usually put in there the independent variable. On the other hand, sa y-axis naman, ito yung nag-appear ng time ko ng exam. Ang tinanong sa amin was the y-axis. Anong variable daw ba ang nilalagay sa y-axis? Y-axis is the vertical na axis at dyan natin inilalagay yung dependent variable. Sa case ng LJ chart, sino ba ang dependent? Sino ba ang dependent variable natin sa LJ chart natin? The y-axis of the LJ chart, usually ang dependent variable sa LJ chart natin is the concentration. Okay? Di ba nag-run ka ng control on that particular date? May lalabas na concentration. Yung concentration, ipa-plot mo siya against the y-axis. Okay? So, date or time yun nasa x-axis, concentration yun nasa y-axis natin. Okay? Pero again, don't forget yung variable particularly. Variable, dependent variable on the y-axis, independent variable on the x-axis natin. So, x for the independent, y-axis for the dependent na variable. Okay, so yun yung paraan kung paano tayo nagko-construct ng ating LJ chart. And para saan daw ulit, bakit tayo nagre-record at nagpa-plot ng LJ chart natin? Ang main purpose daw nun is para makapag-detect tayo ng errors. However, be careful, there are two major types of errors. What are the two major types of errors natin? We have the systematic error and we have the random error. Okay? I think hindi ko siya nailagay dyan sa notes natin, pero ano nga palang difference ng systematic error sa random error natin? Okay? So, isa-isay natin from the word itself. Pag sinabing systematic error, error na may sistema. Pag sinabing error na may sistema, error na merong pattern. And once na ma-establish or malaman mo na or makita mo na yung pattern, predictable na sila. Okay? As the name suggests, no, systematic error, error na may sistema, error na may pattern. At once na ma-establish or makita mo na yung pattern, predictable na ang mga systematic error natin. Which is quite the opposite of the random error. As the name suggests, random error. Ito yung error that appears due to chance. Okay, so they would appear due to chance. Out of the blue, lulubog, lilitaw. Okay, biglang nandyan, maya-maya wala. Okay, wag kakalimutan, unpredictable. Mahirap ma-predict kung kailan sila mag-a-appear kasi nga they appear due to chance. Okay, lulubog, lilitaw, biglang nandyan, biglang wala. Okay, so yun na naman yung difference no, ng systematic error sa random error natin. And para daw pala makapag-detect tayo ng mga systematic at mga random error, kailangan nating i-record yung mga results natin sa LJ chart. And syempre, hindi sapat na ma-drawing mo siya sa LJ chart natin. Kailangan i-evaluate din natin si LJ chart. And usually, pag nag-evaluate tayo ng LJ chart, ano ba yung mga hinahanap natin? Una, maghahanap tayo ng shift, maghahanap tayo ng mga trends, and isasabay na rin natin yung paghahanap ng mga outliers. At pag nagawa mo na itong tatlong to, pwede ka nang gumamit ng Westcard multi-rule. Okay? Nandiyan sa notes natin yung definition ng shift. How do you define shift? Shift refers to a sudden or abrupt na change in the data. Biglaang pagbabago sa data. Okay, kapag may biglaang pagbabago sa data, we usually call it the shift. Pero kapag trend naman, ano ba ang difference ng trend? Kapag trend naman, gradual. Gradual deviations, unti-unting pagbabago sa data. Okay, so we usually call it the trend. Okay, so recall question ha, yung definition ng shift at saka ng trend natin. Shift kapag biglaan yung pagbabago sa data, trend kapag unti-unti yung pagbabago sa data natin. Okay? However, another term is the word outlier. However, hindi ko yata nailagay dyan yung word na outlier, no? Ano ba ang definition ng outlier natin? Outlier pertains to the value or values that are far from the usual set. Okay, far from the usual na set. Okay, ito yung mga naliligaw ng landas. For example, lahat ng values mo nandito sa area na to. Tapos merong pasaway na nandun sa kabilang ibayo. Nandito lahat ng mga values mo, merong isang naligaw dun sa kabilang side, isa or dalawang naligaw sa kabilang side. We usually call them the outliers. Okay, so these are value or values that are far from the usual set of the data. Okay, and kadalasan kapag outlier, kadalasan connected yan sa random error. Yung mga biglaang mapalayo, biglaang napalayong mga value. Okay, pero either way, outliers or values that are usually far, no, from the typical set ng data natin, we could usually call them the outlier. Okay? Pero either way, kapag nakapag-check ka na ng shift, nakapag-check ka na ng trend, nakapag-check ka na rin kung may mga outlier na naniligaw ng landas, okay, mga naliligaw ng landas, okay, saka natin gagamitin no, si Westgard multi-rule. Okay, Westgard multi-rule, and I think nandiyan sa notes natin yung ilan sa mga Westgard multi-rule natin. Ang purpose daw pala ng Westgard multi-rule ay para makapag-detect ng mga errors. Okay, so para makapag-detect ng mga errors, we have to use the Westgard multi-rule. Okay, meron kasi tayong mga Westgard multi-rule ha, na nagde-detect ng systematic error at may mga Westgard multi-rule tayo na nagde-detect ng random error. Laging tatandaan, alam nyo ba na kapag ang Westgard multi-rule starts with an even number, mataas ang chance na nagde-detect yan ng systematic error. Best example, si 22S. 22S starts with number 2, even number yan, nagdadetect yan ng systematic error. Si 41S naman, 41S nag-start din with 4. 4 is an even number, nagdadetect din yan ng systematic error. Another good example, si 10X starts with number 10, even number, nagdadetect din yan ng systematic na error. So usually, if the Westgard multi-rule starts with an even number, 22S, 41S, 10X, they all start with an even number, lahat yan magdadetect ng systematic error. However, kapag ang Westgard multi-rule naman natin, ay nag-start with an odd number, kadalasan naman nagdadetect yan ng random na error. Okay, random na error. Okay, nagdadetect ng random error. Best example, C1, 2S starts with number 1. Pwede siyang magdetect ng random error. C1, 3S starts also with number 1. Nagdadetect din yan ng random error. And finally, we have the R4S. Uy, teka ma'am, hindi naman odd number yung letter R. Okay, so ito yung kakaiba, no? Ito yung exception to the rule. Kasi meron tayong Westgard multi-rule na hindi naman nag-i-start with an odd number. Ang meron sa kanya ay letter. Pero dito may palatandaan tayo, yung letter R. Letter R in here serves as a reminder na nagdadetect siya ng random error. So under siya ng mga nagdadetect ng random error. Ang palatandaan natin ni letter R. Uy, pero by the way ha, yung letter R dyan, hindi random ang meaning niyan. Palatandaan lang yon. Palatandaan lang yon na nagdedetect siya ng random error, pero ang tunay na meaning ng letter R dyan sa R4S ay range. Range ang tunay na meaning ng R sa R4S natin. Pero ingat ha, palatandaan lang natin. Palatandaan natin na yung R dyan ay letter R, parang random. Okay, nagdedetect kasi ito ng random error. Okay, siya lang naman yung exception to the rule kasi siya lang yung naman na nag-i-start with the letter. Pero itong unang tatlo, nagdedetect ng systematic error. Itong huling tatlo, nagdedetect sila ng random error. Kaya pala importante gumagamit ng Westgard multi-rule, no? So that we would be able to detect for the presence. Okay, for the presence of the systematic and of the random errors natin. So may mga Westgard multi-rule kasi na magsasabi sa'yo na meron kang systematic error. May mga Westgard multi-rule din tayo na magsasabi na meron kang random na error. Okay, so yun yung purpose na ng mga Westgard multi-rule natin. Okay, so teka ma'am, ano ba ibig sabihin ng mga abbreviations na yan? Ano ba kasi ibig sabihin ng mga abbreviations na netong ating Westgard multi-rule? Okay, so ganito yan. Usually, ang standard format ng Westgard multi-rule natin, they usually start with a number. Although meron tayong exception, okay, in this case, kunwari we have 22S. They usually start with a number at meron silang subscript. Laging tatandaan, yung number na malaki, siya yung magsasabi sa'yo ng number of the values observed. Ilang control values ba ang inoobserbahan mo? Ilang control values ba ang tinitingnan mo? In the case of your 22S, you're looking at 2 consecutive na values. You are observing 2 consecutive values. At ano daw ang nangyari sa 2 consecutive values natin? Makikita mo yan dun sa subscript. Si subscript ang magsasabi sa'yo ng location. Location of those particular the values. Pero ingat nga pala kayo sa location ha. Usually, bago natin ini-state ang location, naglalagay tayo ng mga words or phrases before stating the location. Like for example, before nating sabihin yung 22S, before natin sabihin yung 2S rather or 2 standard deviation, kailangan natin yung words na more than. More than before stating the location. O kaya naman, kung ayaw mong gamitin yung words na more than, you can use the word greater than bago nyo sabihin yung location. Okay, greater than the positive, negative 2 standard deviation. By the way, palaging positive, negative to. Okay, so positive, negative, hindi pwedeng positive lang, hindi pwedeng negative, positive, negative. Okay, so more than the positive, negative 2 standard deviation, meron kang 2 values greater than the positive, negative 2 standard deviation. Kung ayaw mong gamitin yung more than or greater than, pwede mo rin gamitin yung word na exceed. Exceeds the certain location, exceeds the positive, negative 2 standard deviation. O kaya naman, kung ayaw mong gamitin yung word na exceed, greater than, more than, pwede mong gamitin yung word na outside. Outside the positive, negative 2 standard deviation. So usually, before we state the location, We usually put the words more than, greater than, exceed, or outside before we state the location. So that means, anong ibig sabihin ng 2 to S? Ano ngayon ang meaning ng 2 to S natin? You have two consecutive values. At ano daw ang nangyari dun sa two consecutive values mo? The two values are located where? They are found in 2, or they are found to be more than the positive negative 2 standard deviation. They were found outside the positive negative 2 standard deviation. They were found exceeding the positive negative 2 standard deviation. They are greater than the positive negative 2 standard deviation. Okay, so dito, yan yung characteristics no, ng location ng ating mga values. So yun yung meaning ng 2 to S. So usually, yung big number will tell you the number of the values observed, and the subscript will usually tell you the location. Okay, the location of the values natin. Okay, so yan yung kadalasang meaning ng mga Westgard multi-rule. So meaning, kung i-apply naman natin yan sa 4-1S, how do you describe now the 4-1S? Ano naman ang description ng 4-1S? Meaning to say, ilang values ang inoobserbahan mo rito? You are now looking at 4 consecutive values. Anong ganap dun sa 4 consecutive values mo? Saan natagpuan yung 4 na magkakasunod na values mo? Natagpuan sila sa labas ng positive negative 1 standard deviation. Lumagpas sila sa positive negative 1 standard deviation. They are greater or more than the 1 standard deviation. Okay, so yan yung mga meanings kadalasan ha ng mga Westgard multi-rule natin. Okay? However, meron tayong naiiba sa listahan. Naiiba sa listahan number 1, si 10x. Ma'am, anong meaning ng 10x? So yung 10 dyan would still represent the number of the values observed. Number of the values observed. So you are looking at 10 consecutive na values. Meron kang tinitingnan na 10 magkakasunod na value, and ma'am, ano yung x? Di ba yung x pertains to the location? Pero yung x dito stands for the mean. Yung x dito, in this case, actually stands for the mean. And yung x dito particularly pertains to a side of the mean. So pag sinabing 10x, ito yung isa sa mga medyo exemption to the rule kasi walang SD yung kanyang subscript. Ang ibig sabihin ng 10x, you have 10 values, 10 consecutive values that are on the same side of the x or same side of the mean. Okay, yung tipong lahat na, di ba kunwari nasa gitna yung mean natin, yung 10 magkakasunod na value mo, na dito lang lahat. Wala man lang naligaw sa kabilang side. Yung 10 magkakasunod na value mo, lahat nandito lang sa isang side ng mean, o kaya naman sa kabilang side lang ng mean, wala man lang naligaw sa kabilang side. We usually call that the 10x. If you have 10 consecutive values, 10 consecutive values no, that are on the same side of the mean lang, we usually call it the 10x. And that can denote pala a possible na systematic na error. Okay. Kasi ang weird naman, no, biruin mo 10 magkakasunod na value, lahat sila nasa isang side lang. Wala man lang naligaw sa kabilang side. That may be associated with a systematic error. Okay? So siya yung isa sa mga exception natin to the rule. Another exception natin dun sa format na ganito ay si R4S. Medyo kakaiba kasi si R4S. Ano nga palang meaning ng R sa R4S natin? The R in there stands for range. Yung R sa R4S natin ha, R in the R4S actually stands for range. Okay, range. Ma'am, paanong range? Pag sinabing R4S kasi, ang ibig sabihin nito, yung range or yung distance ng dalawang values mo, dalawang magkasunod na values of your two consecutive values are 4 or more than 4 standard deviations apart. Ano daw? Yung layo daw ng dalawang magkasunod mo na value, higit pa sa 4 na standard deviation. Teka, ma'am, di ba hanggang 3 lang ang standard deviation? Ba't umabot yan ng 4, ma'am? Bakit siya umabot ng 4? Okay, ganito. Para madali, i-drawing na lang natin siya. I-drawing natin si R4S. Okay, para makita natin yung itsura niya. No? By the way, sa board exam, may mga pictures na. Kaya make sure that you know kung ano yung mga itsura ng mga yan. Okay, drawing natin, for example, ito yung mean. Tapos meron tayong positive 1 standard deviation, positive 2, positive 3 standard deviation. And syempre, kung may positive, meron din tayong negative. Meron tayong negative 1, negative 2, negative 3 standard deviation. Excuse me. Okay, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3 standard deviation. Kapag sinabing for R4S, okay, drawing natin siya. Okay, kunwari nandito yung value mo kahapon. Ay, hindi. Palitan natin. Lagay natin siya sa taas pa. Okay, kunwari nandito yung value mo kahapon. Okay? Kahapon, yung control value mo ay napadpad dito. Tapos, the following day, the next day, yung pangalawang value ay 1, 2, 3, 4, more than 4 standard deviations apart from each other. Yan yung tinatawag nating R4S. Yung range or yung distance nung dalawang magkasunod na value mo, more than 4 standard deviations ang layo. Okay? So dito, ano yung 4 na yon? Ito, isang standard deviation na to Pangalawang standard deviation, pangatlong standard deviation, pang-apat na standard deviation, anong distance nung dalawang mong value? They are more than 4 standard deviations apart from each other. That is what you would call the R4S. Therefore, R4S is just like being in a long distance relationship. Long distance relationship. Yung tipong apat na ilog ang pagitan yung dalawa. Okay, we call that the R4S. So therefore, kung gusto mong umi-status sa Facebook, you wanted to tell the entire world that you're in an LDR, in a long distance relationship, you can just simply say that you're in an R4S, the relationship. Okay, kung medtech naman ang makakita niyan, ay understood na long distance relationship. Okay, so yan yung tinatawag nating R4S. And ingat kayo kasi si R4S madalas nako-confuse kay 41S. Kasi nga naman, parehas may 4, parehas pang may S. Kaya minsan yung mga students nako-confuse sa R4S at saka sa 41S. Pero kung i-drawing natin si 41S, palitan natin ng kulay, ano itsura ng 41S natin? Okay? You have 4 consecutive values. Nasaan daw sila natagpuan? Outside the positive, negative, 1 standard deviation. By the way, ito yung inside. Okay? Inside. Ito yung inside Inside the positive, negative, 1 standard deviation. Okay? Ito kasi yung positive, ito yung negative 1. Nasa loob is itong area na to. Okay, so itong area na to ang nasa loob. Okay, nasa loob ng positive, negative 1. Tapos ano daw ang nangyari dun sa apat na magkakasunod mong value? Yung apat na magkakasunod na value mo daw ay nasa labas. Nasa labas ng 1 standard deviation. Pwedeng nandito siya sa taas, pero pwede rin nandito. Okay, pwede rin nandito siyang ganyan. Okay, basta nasa labas siya. Nasa labas siya ng 1 standard deviation. Okay, ito kasi yung inside. Okay, shadean natin ha. Ito kasi yung inside. Inside the positive, negative 1. So, yung apat na magkakasunod mong value ay nasa labas. Yung apat na magkakasunod mong value ay nasa labas ng 1 standard deviation. So, we would call this the 41S. Okay, 41S din naman to. Pero bottom line, ingat kayo kasi magkaiba yung R4S sa 41S. Okay, mag-iingat lang kasi para silang may 4, para din silang may S. Okay, kaya minsan nako-confuse no, yung mga students about it. Okay? Pero all in all, yan yung difference no, ng R4S with the 41S. Pero generally speaking, ang 10X at saka si R4S lang naman ang medyo kakaiba. Pero yung mga Westgard multi-rule natin, nagkakasundo naman sila kadalasan. Yung big number will tell you the number of the values observed, and yung subscript would usually tell you the location. Kung nasaan ba sila. Nasa labas ba sila ng 1 standard deviation? Nasa labas ba sila ng 2 standard deviation? Or nasa labas ba sila ng 3 standard deviation? Okay? However, another important thing to point out, no, yung mga Westgard multi-rule natin ay ginagamit na pang-detect ng error. However, recall question. Sino nga pala yung ginagamit nating screening rule or warning rule for rejection? Sino pala yung ginagamit nating screening rule or warning rule for rejection? Meaning, kapag nakita mo to, hindi ka pa talaga magre-reject. Pero, warning sign yan na posibleng mag-reject ka ng run in the future. Sino pala yung tinaguriang screening or warning rule for rejection? Recall question yan ha, C1. 2S. Kapag nakakita ka pala ng 1, 2S, hindi mo pa talaga ire-reject yung run. Hindi ka pa talaga magre-rerun or magre-reject ng run. Usually, warning sign lang yan na posibleng mag-reject ka ng run in the very, very near future. Okay? Pero technically, screening or warning rule pa lang siya for rejection. Okay? Pero all in all, yan yung mga Westgard multi-rule natin. Don't forget kung sino-sino yung mga nagdedetect ng systematic, sino-sino yung mga nagdedetect ng random error. Huwag din kakalimutan yung mga meaning nila kasi sometimes they would ask you to describe those abbreviations. Kaya kailangan alam natin yung mga typical meaning ng mga Westgard multi-rules natin. Okay? Pero all in all, yan yung additional thing that we have to do, no? Aside from simply running the control, kailangan alam din natin kung paano ipa-plot, idodrawing yung mga control values natin. Okay? However, aside from that, yan yung mga ginagawa natin sa analytical na phase ng testing. Pero syempre, meron pa tayong after the analysis. Okay? After the analysis, usually under na yan ng post-analytical. So sa post-analytical, ano ba yung mga dapat nating tingnan or tandaan? Okay, so some of them would include, una, the reference range. And alam nyo na ba ang chika, na hindi tayo dapat gumagamit ng reference ranges sa libro. We're not supposed to use the reference ranges na nasa libro. We are actually supposed to do what? Okay, we were actually supposed to create our own reference range. In fact, each laboratory, no, each laboratory should have their very own reference na range. Okay, each laboratory should establish their own reference na range to fit their population. Ma'am, bakit? Bakit each laboratory should have their own reference range? So, unang tanong, ba't di natin pwedeng gamitin yung nasa libro? Well, kasi karamihan ng libro natin are foreign authors. Meaning, ginawa yon knowing or keeping in mind na yung mga population na tinitingnan nila American population, British na population. Since ginawa yan sa ibang bansa, yung mga normal values na yan are typically intended for their population. Okay? So technically, yung mga levels or yung mga values nila are not really that much applicable here in the Philippines. Merong iba na medyo similar regardless of whatever ethnicity or ethnic origin you came from. Pero may mga analytes kasi tayo na iba yung values nila depende sa lahi. So minsan iba yung mga values ng mga Amerikano sa values ng mga Pinoy, ganyan-ganyan and so on and so forth. So technically, each laboratory, no, dapat gumawa sila ng sarili nilang reference range. Hindi natin sila dapat talaga normally kinokopya sa mga libro. Okay? Ma'am, ba't di na lang iisa sa buong Pilipinas? Okay, ma'am, alam na namin kung bakit hindi namin dapat sundin yung nasa libro or di namin dapat gamitin yung nasa libro. Pero bakit hindi nila magkasundo lahat ng Pinoy? Okay, pare-pares naman tayong Pilipino, ma'am. Bakit iba pa yung reference range sa ibang lugar, ma'am? Iba pa yung reference range, ma'am, dun sa Baguio, sa reference range namin dito sa Manila, sa reference range namin sa ganito, or sa ganyan. Bakit iba-ibang laboratory, iba-iba pa ng reference range? Di ba pwedeng iisa na lang? Pare-pares naman tayong Pilipino, ma'am. Ba't di na lang iisa? Okay, kailangan kasi the reference range should fit their own population. Ma'am, paano should fit their own population? Best example, may mga specialty hospitals tayong tinatawag, di ba? For example, meron tayong Philippine Children's Medical Center, meron tayong National Children's Hospital, which would primarily cater children. And may mga chemistry parameters kasi tayo na iba yung values nila depende sa age ng individual. So for that, they need to establish their very own reference range. Okay, kailangan i-establish na yung sarili nilang reference range to fit the population that they would usually cater to. Meron din tayong mga geriatric centers. Pag sinabi geriatric center, ito yung mga hospitals that would cater the elderly. So, syempre, iba rin ang mga normal values or reference ranges kung elderly yung population na madalas nilang kinekater. Similarly, iba-iba rin sa mga specialty clinics. Depende pa rin no, sa kinekater nila sa mga buntis, sa mga ganito, ganyan-ganyan. Okay, so technically, iba-iba sila ng reference range intended to fit their very own population. Okay? Ma'am, paano pag general hospital naman? General hospital naman, di naman kami specialty hospital, ma'am, general na hospital naman. Kumbaga, we cater everyone. We cater everyone. Di ba pwede magkasundo-sundo na lang kami ma'am, ng reference range? Well, unfortunately, hindi pa rin. Bakit? Best example, may mga factors kasi na nakakaapekto sa normal values natin. Best example, altitude. Hindi mo pwedeng gamitin ang reference range sa mga low-lying area sa reference range ng hospital sa mga high altitude area. For example, Baguio. Ibang reference range na sa Baguio compared sa reference range here in low-lying areas such as in case ng Manila. Bakit? Kasi altitude can affect a lot of things. Like for example, iba ang hemoglobin values doon. Usually kasi pag mataas ang altitude, mataas yung lugar, minsan tumataas yung hindi pala minsan, tumataas yung hemoglobin and hematocrit. So technically, iba yung normal values nila out there sa normal values here sa mga low-lying areas. Kaya naman, again, each laboratory should establish their own reference range. So how? How, ma'am? How are we supposed to establish? How are we supposed to create our own reference range? Okay, kailangan alam natin ang formula ng range natin. Remember, kapag range, kadalasan dalawang numbers yan. So, ang ginagamit natin kadalasan to calculate the range is equivalent to the mean plus and minus the 2 times the standard deviation. Madalas ang ginagamit natin ay 2 standard deviation. Hindi siya masyadong mahigpit, di rin siya masyadong maluwag. Okay? Confidence interval, kadalasan pag nagka-create tayo ng range, we often use 2 standard deviations. Okay? So for that, para daw pala makapag-create tayo ng range, kailangan natin ay mean plus and minus the 2 standard deviations natin. Okay? Ma'am, ano yung ibig sabihin ng plus and minus? Okay? So dito, para makuha natin yung dalawang value, di ba kapag range dalawang value yan, meron kang lower limit at meron kang upper limit ng range. Okay? So para makuha natin yung lower limit ng range, gagamitin mo yung minus. Mean minus 2 times the standard deviation. And para makuha mo naman yung upper limit ng range natin, yung highest point ng range natin, gagamitin mo naman yung plus. Mean plus 2 times the standard deviation. Okay, so yun yung meaning nung plus and minus. Literally, yung mean, dadagdagan mo ng 2 standard deviation. Yung mean, maminusan mo ng 2 standard deviation. Okay, that is how we get the reference range natin. So yan yung paraan para makuha natin yung lower and upper limit ng ating range. Okay? And again ha, each laboratory should have their own reference range. Kaya naman, ma'am, paano yun? Paano kami mag-memorize ng reference range? Well, actually, tinatanong ba talaga ang reference range? Unfortunately, yes. Tinatanong no ang mga reference ranges. However, don't look for the exact answer kasi wala talagang eksakto answer. You would really choose what you think is the closest possible na answer. Kasi technically speaking, iba-iba talaga ang reference ranges sa iba't ibang hospital. So therefore, what you ought to do is to choose what you think is the closest possible no, from the choices. Don't worry, pagdating naman sa board exam, malalayo naman yung agwat nila. So hindi kayo mahihirapang pumili. Okay? Pero kailangan alam niyo yung mga typical na range. Okay, alam natin dapat yung mga typical na range para mahanap mo yung closest possible na answer. Okay, so malalayo naman yung differences ng mga nasa choices. So hindi naman kayo mag-worry kung nag-overlap yung mga values, madali namang makapili. Okay, pero unfortunately kasi tinatanong talaga yung reference ranges, kaya you really have to be somehow familiar with the reference ranges. Okay? So yan yung ating reference range. However, aside from that, another thing that we check after the analysis is the so-called delta check. What is delta check? Actually, from the word delta, delta means change. Delta is a Greek letter that denotes change. So therefore, pag sinabing delta check, ano palang ibig sabihin nun? It literally means change check. Change check. I-check mo lang kung may mga changes sa result ni pasyente today with his or her previous na result. So therefore, para saan pala itong delta check natin? Si delta check nga pala laging tatandaan, kino-compare mo. You are comparing the results of the patient right now, the current results, with the previous na result. Especially kung dati naman nang may record si pasyente dun sa hospital or dun sa laboratory, i-compare lang natin yung result ni pasyente today with his or her previous na result. For what reason? Ba't ginagawa natin yan? Para malaman mo lang as a medtech, mataas ba talaga yung glucose niya? Dati na bang mataas or baka ngayon lang mataas? Kasi kung ngayon lang mataas yan, ulitin mo, baka naman nagkakaroon ka lang ng error. So, yun yung purpose why we have to do the delta check, no? Iko-compare mo lang yung result ng pasyente para malaman mo kapag mataas yung glucose niya. Mataas na ba dati yung glucose niya or baka ngayon lang? Kasi kung ngayon lang yan, baka may error sa analysis. Kaya usually ang ginagawa ni medtech, no, kapag nakita niyang niran niya mataas, uulitin niya muna. Tapos lalagay niya sa remarks. Minsan, kunyari, wala pang record yung pasyente doon sa hospital na yon, ilalagay niya sa remark, repeated twice. Okay? Para lang to ensure na pag nakita ni doctor yan and naging concern ka naman, inulit mo ng 2 beses yung testing at nalaman mo na mataas talaga yung kanyang result. Okay? So, usually ginagawa yan, especially pag walang record yung patient doon sa laboratory na yon. Usually, inuulit ni medtech ng 2 beses. Tapos nino-note niya doon sa remarks, no? Nilagyan ng asterisk yung result, tapos nakalagay repeated twice. Okay? Para at least makita man ni doctor, alam niya na, ay, 2 beses inulit to ni medtech na nakumpirma mataas talaga yung result. Okay? So, yung mga ganun. Okay? So, technically speaking, yun yung importance ng delta check natin. And nowadays, mabilis na ang delta check kasi computerized na, no? Computerized na kasi. Minsan nga, automatic na siyang lumalabas. Automatic nang nakaseries doon yung mga test result ni pasyente dati together with the dates ng mga time na previous siya nagpa-check ng particular na yun. Especially kapag vitros yung machine nyo, automatic lumalabas na siya agad. Okay? Pero either way, that's the essence of doing the delta check para lang malaman, no, ma-compare yung result ni pasyente today with his or her previous na test result. Okay? And what about recording and reporting of the test result? Recording and reporting, this has something to do with the units. Meron kasi tayong 2 klase ng units na ginagamit, no? Usually sa American Standard, conventional unit ang ginagamit nila. And usually kapag British na standard, kadalasan SI unit ang ginagamit nila. Okay? Pero minsan sa mga hospital, sa mga laboratory, 2 na silang nakalagay. Okay, 2 silang nakalagay. Okay, nakalagay sa left side yung conventional, tas automatic nakalagay na sa right side yung SI na unit. Okay, kadalasan automatic na sila 2 gine-generate. Pero minsan yung ibang hospital, they prefer the conventional. Yung iba namang hospitals, they would just put the SI unit. Basta ang mahalaga kasi rito, regardless of whatever unit you're using, mahalaga may normal value. Okay, ang mahalaga kasi sa doctor, malaman niya kung normal ba, mataas ba, or mababa ba yung value. Okay, so yun yung importanteng part doon. It doesn't matter kung anong unit ang ginagamit ng hospital, basta ang mahalaga, mako-compare or malalaman ni doctor kung normal ba yan or mataas, normal ba yan or mababa. Okay, so therefore, regardless of whether you use conventional or SI unit, mahalaga na may nakalagay na reference ranges. Okay? And syempre, in line with the conventional and SI unit, minimemorize nyo ba kung ano yung mga conventional and SI unit? Apparently, may mga recall question tayo sa board exam that they're just simply asking, what is the SI unit of this? What is the conventional unit of that? So, ingat kayo. Make sure kabisado ninyo yung SI unit ng glucose kasi tinanong na yan dati sa exam. SI unit ng chloride, creatinine, bilirubin. Okay, in short, try to be familiar what the conventional and the SI unit would be for each of the particular analyte natin. And syempre, aside from knowing what the units are, kailangan alam din natin yung conversion value natin. Kailangan alam din natin yung conversion factor to convert one value to the other. Okay, to convert one value to the other, kailangan natin yung mga conversion factors. And usually on the average, minsan may mga batches sa board exam na walang lumalabas na conversion factor. Pero usually on the average, mga around 2 to 3 yung lumalabas. Okay, nung time ko kasi 2 yung lumabas namin na conversion factor ng T4 at saka conversion factor ng glucose. Okay? So sometimes they would ask you to compute it, pero minsan they would just ask you directly, what is the conversion factor of this? What's the conversion factor of that? So sayang din, 2 points din agad yun ako sakali. So technically speaking, make sure that you are also familiar, not just with the units, make sure that you also know how to convert one to the other. Okay, kaya yun yung importance, no, dun sa reporting ng ating test result. Okay? Following that, nandiyan din yung mga critical values natin. Critical value, panic value, or alert values. Okay, so ano ba tong critical, panic, or alert na values natin? Okay? minsan tinanong ng board exam yung other names. Ano daw yung other name ng critical value ng critical value natin? Tinatawag din silang panic value or alert value. And ano ba ibig sabihin ng critical value or panic value? Okay, yan yung value na kapag nakuha mo, kailangan mo nagpa-panic. Okay, ganun ba yun? Okay, the answer is no ha. Okay, itong value na to, yan yung kapag naabot mo, you need to immediately call the attention of the doctor. Kailangan i-report mo siya agad sa doctor. Pero actually, bago mo siya i-report sa doctor, consult the pathologist muna on duty. Okay? I-coordinate mo muna sa pathologist on duty and usually, doctor to doctor yung nag-uusap. Okay? Kadalasan, doctor to doctor yung nag-usap. Kaya naalala ko dati during internship, pag may na-achieve kaming certain na panic value, we usually talk to the pathologist on duty tapos kadalasan sila yung tumatawag. Lalo kapag inpatient. Usually nangyayari naman yan kapag inpatient. Okay, so kapag inpatient, tatawagan agad ng pathologist, doctor to doctor kadalasan yung nag-uusap. So tatawagan niya agad yung ward kung saan located. Yung pasyente, kakausapin niya yung attending doctor in there, no, para ma-inform agad na masyadong critical yung value or scary yung value na na-achieve from that particular na patient. Okay, pero usually you have to tell the doctor, no? Okay, kapag naabot yung panic value na yan. Ma'am, bakit? Kasi ito yung mga values na kapag naabot mo, life and death situation, pwedeng ikamatay ni pasyente. Speaking of which, values. Critical value, recall question, yung critical value or panic value natin for glucose. Ano nga pala yung critical value or panic value natin for glucose? Dalawa yan. Dalawa yung panic value for glucose ha. Kailangan i-alert natin si doctor pag less than 40 na ang glucose ni pasyente. But you also have to alert the doctor kapag more than 500 na ang glucose ni pasyente. Less than 40, more than 500, we have to alert the doctor. Okay, we need to alert the doctor. Bakit? Kasi alam niyo ba na pag sobrang baba ng glucose at sobrang taas ng glucose, ang isa sa mga organ na maapektuhan is yung ating brain. Ang brain natin ang isa sa kauna-unahang maapektuhan kapag sobrang baba ng glucose at sobrang taas ng glucose. And alam niyo ba kapag ganyan yung values, pwedeng magkaroon ng permanent brain damage kapag sobrang baba or pag sobrang taas ng glucose. Ma'am, bakit nga pala brain ang naaapektuhan? Pag masyadong mababa or pag masyadong mataas ang glucose. Kasi alam niyo ba na ang brain ang nagko-consume. Brain consumes 25% lang naman of the glucose natin. Okay, biruin mo, 25% ng glucose na kinakain natin go straight to your brain. Ganyang katakaw ang brain natin. Ganyang katakaw ang brain natin sa glucose. Biruin mo, if you think about it, 1/4 of every cup ng rice na kinakain mo goes straight to your brain. Okay, ganyan katindi mag-consume ang brain natin ng glucose. So therefore, kapag nagkaroon ng bigla ang pagbabago sa glucose natin, biglang baba, biglang taas, brain agad ultimately ang maapektuhan. Okay, kaya naman, don't forget, critical value for the glucose, less than 40, more than 500. Okay? Another recall question sa critical value is yung critical value natin for bilirubin, especially for the newborns. Kailangan pala i-alert na natin si doctor kapag ang bilirubin ni baby ay lumagpas ng 18. Kapag more than 18 milligrams per deciliter yung ating bilirubin, particularly sa babies, you have to alert the doctor. Ma'am, bakit? Kasi alam niyo ba na kapag lumagpas pa ng 20, pwede nang magkaroon ng tinatawag na kernicterus. Recall question taken from the Book of Bishop. Kernicterus is at certainty if bilirubin reaches or exceeds 20 milligrams per deciliter. Kapag lumagpas na pala ng 20, ang bilirubin ng baby particularly, sure na magkakaroon siya ng kernicterus. Kaya naman, pag lumagpas pa lang ng 18, you have to immediately alert the doctor. Kasi pag lumagpas pa yan ng 20, pwede nang magkaroon ng kernicterus. Which brings us to the recall question. What is kernicterus nga pala? Kernicterus refers to the, what? Ano nga ba yung kernicterus natin? It is the deposition. Deposition of bilirubin, where? In the brain. Deposition of the bilirubin in the brain. And usually, sino yung at risk dito? Ang at risk dito kadalasan ay mga babies. Babies suffering from hemolytic disease of the newborn. So usually, kadalasan dito, ang naapektuhan, ang kadalasang pwedeng magkaroon ng ganyan ay mga babies na merong hemolytic disease of the newborn. Okay? So therefore, recall questions. Number 1, don't forget the panic value for bilirubin, more than 18. Pangalawa, don't forget the level of bilirubin para magkaroon ng kernicterus. Kernicterus is at certainty if the bilirubin exceeds 20. Pangatlo, wag kakalimutan yung definition ng kernicterus. Kernicterus is defined as deposition of bilirubin in the brain. And again, usually ang at risk of having kernicterus ay mga babies na merong HDFN, hemolytic disease of the fetus and of the newborn. Okay? So all in all, yan yung ilan sa mga panic value. Although marami talagang panic value, pero yung binigyan lang natin ng emphasis is yung mga nag-a-appear na pagdating ng exam. So make sure that you are well familiar with them. Okay? Kasi tinatanong sila sa board exam aside from the reference ranges natin. Okay? And finally, part pa rin ng post-analytical portion ay ang mga calculations natin. Okay? Ang mga calculations natin. Okay? And for that, we will need to be familiar with some of the mathematical stuff no, that is being asked pagdating sa clinical chemistry. Okay, so we have in your notes the different mathematical problems. So I think we have in there around 20. Around 20 mathematical problems no, concerning the laboratory mathematics natin. Okay, laboratory mathematics. So let's try to look at them one by one. Pero by the way, question, kasi 0 na yung timer, hanggang anong oras ba tayo supposed to be? Okay, pasensya na hindi ako naguluhan lang ako sa oras. Okay, anong oras ba tayo dapat? Kasi nag-stop na yung timer dito, so sabi ko hanggang 4 lang ba tayo dapat? Okay, let me know kung ano ba dapat ang ano. Kasi ang alam ko hanggang 5 ako, pero okay, let me know baka mamaya. Baka mamaya meron palang gagamit ng ano, ng room or something. Okay. So let me know lang. Okay, pero kung hindi, sige, tuloy tayo hanggang 5. Okay, hanggang 5, hanggang 5 ano. Okay, so dito, let's try to look at the next topic natin. Okay, kasi baka kulangin tayo sa oras kapag medyo na-limit yung ating time. Okay, pero let me know ha, baka kasi may gagamit nung ano. Ang alam ko kasi hanggang 5 eh. Okay, pero either way. Ayan, laboratory mathematics tayo. So we have in there around, I think, 20 questions. And yung karamihan dyan, mga previous na recall questions. No? So we really have to deal with them. Okay? And believe it or not, yung ibang question dyan na pang general chemistry, tinatanong pa rin kahit sa medtech board exam. Yung mga percent weight per volume, tinatanong yan sa board exam. Okay, yung mga molarity, normality, much to my surprise, naichika ng isa sa mga student na tinanong pala sa kanila dati, yung molarity, normality. So yung mga hindi natin inaasahan no, na akala natin pang first year lang, pang general chemistry, unfortunately for us, tinatanong pa rin pala sila pagdating sa exam. So dito, we have no choice but to deal with them. Start tayo with the first few questions concerning conversion. Ito mga to, basic stuff to, pero they're still being asked. At minsan may mga students na naguguluhan pa rin sa pagko-convert. Okay, so let's try to deal with this one. Convert 3.5 grams into milligrams. Okay, 3.5 grams into milligrams. So how do we actually do that? How do we convert 3.5 grams into milligrams? Okay, first things first, kailangan i-establish muna natin ang conversion factor. Ano nga bang conversion ng grams into milligrams natin? We all know that 1 gram is equivalent to 1,000 milligrams. Remember, kapag milli, 1,000 yan. Okay, so 1 gram is equivalent to 1,000 milligrams. Okay, so ito yung conversion factor natin. So let's try to do it. 3.5 grams. Imu-multiply mo sa conversion factor in the fraction format. Uy, ma'am, sinong ilalagay namin sa numerator? Sinong ilalagay namin sa denominator? Saan natin ilalagay si 1 gram? Saan natin ilalagay si 1,000 milligram? Okay, unahin natin. Saan natin ilalagay si 1 gram? Si 1 gram, ingat kayo, ilalagay niyo yan sa denominator. Si 1,000 milligram ay ilalagay sa numerator. But why? Bakit kailangan nasa denominator yung gram? Kasi laging tatandaan. 'Di ba gusto nating matanggal si gram? Gusto natin kasi na siya ay maging milligram. Remember, if you want to get rid of something, anong gagawin natin? Dapat yung magkaparehas ng unit, ilalagay mo sa opposite na side. Kasi pag may gram sa numerator at may gram sa denominator, magkamukha yan, they would get canceled out. Anong may iwan? Ang may iwan ay si milligrams. So therefore, yun yung reason kung bakit si 1 gram ay nilagay natin sa denominator para ma-cancel out siya. Para ang may iwan is the desired unit, which happens to be milligrams. So that means we have 3.5 times 1,000 divided by 1. That would give us 3,500. So that means 3.5 grams basically would be equivalent to 3,500 milligrams. Okay, so therefore, yan yung answer natin to the first question, conversion factor yan. Simpleng conversion, pero ingat, may mga nadadali pa rin dito. Minsan pinagpapalit nila. Minsan yung 1 gram ang nasa taas, minsan yung 1,000 milligram ang nasa denominator. Ingat kayo, basta ang rule of thumb, yung magkamukha, nasa opposite side. Kung grams ang nasa numerator, ilagay mo yung kamukha niya sa denominator. Kung yung gram ay nasa denominator, yung kamukha niya, lagay mo sa opposite side, lagay mo sa numerator. Okay, para ma-cancel out. Para ang may iwan is yung kailangan mo na unit, which in this case will be milligrams. Okay, so 3.5 times 1,000, that will give us 3,500 milligrams. So therefore, the best answer to the first question natin. Okay, first question natin sa lab math will be equivalent to 3,500. Okay, 3,500 milligrams. Okay, what about the next question natin? Okay, so next question is still connected to conversion. We have item number 2. Okay, let's try to talk about item number 2. This time, we're asked to convert 444 millimeters into meters. 444 millimeters into meters. So what's the first thing that we need to do? Again, state muna natin yung conversion factor. Ano bang conversion factor natin? Millimeters into meters. Remember, 1 meter is equivalent to 1,000 millimeters. Milli means 1,000, so 1 meter is equivalent to 1,000 millimeters. Okay? So if that's the case, anong gagawin natin? 444 millimeter, multiply natin sa fraction form ng ating conversion factor. Now, which one goes on the numerator? Which one goes on the denominator? Saan natin ilalagay si 1 meter? Si 1 meter, ingat, sa numerator yan ilalagay, ha? Si 1,000 millimeter ngayon ang ilalagay natin sa denominator. But why? Why? Kasi remember, para ma-cancel ang isang bagay, yung kamukha ilalagay mo sa opposite side. Gusto mong matanggal si millimeter kasi gusto mo siyang maging meter. You wanted the millimeter to become meter, so we want to get rid of the millimeter. So to get rid of the millimeter, yung kamukha niya, lalagay mo lang sa opposite side. Nasa numerator tong millimeter mo, so ilalagay mo siya sa denominator. Para ma-cancel out, sino may iwan? Ang may iwan ay meter. So that means we have 444 times 1 meter. That would give us 444 meter divided by 1,000. And what is 444 divided by 1,000? That would give us 0.444 meters. So that means your final answer in here is 0.444 meters. Okay, so for item number 2, we have 0.444 meters. That would be the equivalent of 444 milliliters. Okay, so therefore, be careful ha sa nilalagay sa numerator versus sa nilalagay sa denominator. Basta ang rule of thumb, if you want it canceled, lagay mo sila sa magka-opposite na side. Kung gusto mo silang ma-cancel, lagay mo sila sa opposite na side. Okay, so that's for item number 2 natin. The final answer will be 0.444 meters. Okay, what about item number 3? Item number 3 was a previous na recall question. Okay, and ito yung mas common na ginagamit natin sa laboratory. No? Let's try to look at item number 3. Item number 3, the patient's weight daw is 154 pounds. Express his weight in kilograms. Express his weight in... Teka ma'am, saan natin ginagamit yan? Minsan itong question na to, minsan hindi niya sa clinic makikita. Minsan nasa blood banking yan. Donor. Remember, one of the donor requirements would be the weight of the donor. And sometimes yung weight ng donor naka-express in kilograms, minsan naka-express in pounds. Kaya itong problem na to minsan nasa blood banking yan. So dito, we're asked to convert 154 pounds into kilograms. So how do we do that? Well, again, una, kailangan natin ng conversion factor. And ano nga bang conversion factor ng kilograms at saka ng pounds? Pounds natin is LBS. Ano ba yung conversion factor ng kilogram? At saka ng pounds natin. Ito yung conversion factor na kabisadong-kabisado ng mga nagda-diet. Kung hindi man nagda-diet, yung mga nag-gym. Okay, kabisadong-kabisado to ng mga nagda-diet or ng mga nag-gym. Okay, 1 kilogram is equivalent to 2.2 pounds. Kabisado yan ng mga nag-gym, especially mga gumagamit ng mga dumbbell or mga barbell, ganyan. Okay, kasi nakalagay yung kilogram at saka yung pound equivalent ng mga weights na yan. Okay, pero either way, 1 kilogram is equivalent to 2.2 pounds. So that means we have 154 pounds. I-multiply natin sa conversion factor. Now, ingat, sinong ilalagay natin sa numerator, sinong ilalagay natin sa denominator. Si 1 kilogram, ilalagay natin sa numerator. Si 2.2 pounds, ilalagay natin sa denominator. Again, the question is why? Kasi we wanted to get rid of the pounds. Kung gusto mong tanggalin si pound, dapat yung kamukha niya, ilalagay mo sa opposite side. Kung currently nasa numerator yung pound, lagay mo yung sa denominator yung isa pang pound natin. Okay, so therefore, makakancel out yan. Ang may iwan is the desired unit. Ang may iwan ay si kilograms. So that means we have 154 times 1 kilogram. That would give us 154 kilograms on the numerator divided by 2.2 on the denominator. Na-cancel out na yung pounds. So ito na lang may iwan. 154 divided by 2.2, that would give us what? That would give us 70 kilograms. Okay, so therefore, a 154 pound na donor pala is equivalent to 70 kilograms. Okay, so for that, item number 3, the best answer will be 70. Okay, 70 kilograms. So again ha, itong question na to, minsan tinatanong yan saan? Minsan tinatanong yan sa chemistry, pero minsan tinatanong yan sa blood banking, especially in line with the donor screening natin. Okay? However, aside from this, what else? Okay, what else should we know about the conversion? Okay, so naging recall question na itong pounds and kilograms natin, so make sure that you memorize the conversion factor and everything. However, aside from this, we have the next item natin. Okay, so item number 4. Okay, ano meron sa item number 4 natin? Okay, this is another recall question from the previous na batches. Okay, pero in here, we have this particular question. Convert 100 milligrams per deciliter into grams per deciliter. Okay, we are asked to convert 100 milligrams per deciliter into grams per deciliter. Okay, so how do we actually do that? Okay? Ingat ha, kasi minsan naguguluhan na yung mga student kapag may over-over na. Kapag may over-over na, nako-confuse na. Okay, however, kung titingnan nyo, parehas lang naman silang per deciliter, no? So, ano lang talaga i-convert mo rito? Ay, i-convert mo lang dito is yung milligrams into grams. So, ang conversion factor na kailangan lang natin, conversion factor ng gram at saka ng milligram. And nabanggit naman na natin kanina, 1 gram is equivalent to 1,000 milligram. Okay, try natin. Ingat kayo ha. 100 milligrams per deciliter. 100 milligrams per deciliter. Multiply natin sa conversion factor. Now, sinong ilalagay natin sa numerator? Sinong ilalagay natin sa denominator? Where do we put the 1 gram? 1 gram goes on the numerator. 1,000 milligram goes on the denominator. The question is why? We wanted to get rid of the milligrams. Gusto mong tanggalin si milligram. So, paano natin matatanggal si milligram? Yung kamukha niya, lagay mo lang sa opposite side. Kung yung milligrams na gusto mong paslangin ay nasa numerator, lagay mo lang yung kamukha niya sa denominator. So, they would get canceled out. Ano na lang may iwan? Grams per deciliter na lang may iwan. Okay, grams per deciliter may iwan. So that means we have 100 times 1 gram. That would give us 100 gram divided by 1 deciliter. Kapag walang number sa unahan, that's automatically equivalent to 1. 1 deciliter times 1,000, that would give us 1,000 deciliter. Okay? May 0 sa taas, may 0 sa baba, may 0 sa taas, may 0 sa baba. Ang may iwan, 1 over 10 grams per deciliter. And what is 1 over 10 grams per deciliter? 1 over 10 or 1 divided by 10, that would give us 0.1. 0.1 or 0.10 grams per deciliter. So therefore, final answer in here, 100 milligrams per deciliter is equivalent to 0.10 grams per deciliter. liter. Okay, so therefore, answer to number 4, recall question yan dati ng board exam, that is equivalent to 0.1 or 0.10 grams per deciliter. By the way ha, 1/10 or 1/10 is the same as 0.1. Okay, 1/10, 1/10 or 1/10 is the same as 0.1. Ma'am, ba't ina-elaborate mo yan? Recall question. Depth ng Neubauer counting chamber. What's the typical depth of the Neubauer counting chamber? Laging tatandaan, di ba that's equivalent to 0.1 millimeter? However, here comes the tricky part. Nung tinanong yan ng board exam, walang 0.1 millimeter sa choices. So, yung mga students, pinili nila yung none of the above kasi may kumukuti-kuti tap na none of the above sa choices. Without noticing na ang nasa choices pala ay naka-fraction. 1/10 yung nakalagay sa choices. So, ingat kayo ha. 0.1 is practically the same as 1/10 millimeter. Okay, ingat. Kung di nyo makita si 0.1, hanapin nyo yung 1/10. Okay, minsan kasi instead na decimal form, ginagawang fraction ng mga board of examiner yung mga nasa choices. Kaya you have to be extra careful now with the choices. Bago nyo piliin si none of the above, okay, hanapin nyo muna yung mga other ways of expressing 0.1. 0.1 millimeter is practically the same as 1/10, 1/10 or 1/10 of the millimeter. Okay? So nabanggit ko lang, naalala ko lang kasi ganyan yung tricky part no sa hematology na exam dati. Okay, instead of the 0.1, okay, 1/10 or 1/10 yung nakalagay sa choices. So be careful lang with that. Okay? Pero either way, that is the answer to the question number 4 natin. Question number 4, 0.10, 0.1, or 1/10 grams per deciliter. Okay? However, aside from this, what else? Okay, we have the next item. What's the next item natin? Okay, item number 5. Item number 5 begins the journey natin to the concentration-related problems natin. And one of the concentration-related problems in here is the percent volume per volume. What is the percent volume per volume daw if you mix 50 ml of the sulfuric acid with 50 ml of the water? 50 ml of the sulfuric acid with 50 ml of the water. So ano ba yung formula nga pala natin for the percent volume per volume? Uy, volume ang nasa numerator, volume din ang nasa denominator. So dito lalagay natin yung volume in ml sa taas, particularly volume ng solute. Solute is that thing that you want to dissolve, yung gusto mong tunawin. So solute yung tawag sa gusto mong tunawin. ml of the solute goes on the numerator divided by the ml of the solution. Uy ha, pag sinabing solution, volume ng solvent plus the solute. Okay? Volume ng solvent plus volume ng solute. And remember, this is equivalent or this is reported in percent. So don't forget to multiply it by 100 kasi this is expressed in percent. Let's try it out. Ano yung ml na? Teka, sino nga pala yung solute natin dito at sino bang solvent natin? Well, remember, water is the universal solvent. Ba't nga ba naging universal solvent si water? Kasi it dissolves almost everything. It dissolves almost everything. Okay, although hindi lahat, pero karamihan ay pwedeng ma-dissolve with water. So therefore, kung water na ang magsisilbing solvent or pantunaw, sino na yung gusto mong tunawin? Solute yung gusto nating tunawin, it will be now your sulfuric acid. Okay? So in this case, 50 ml ng sulfuric acid goes on the numerator divided by the total volume of the solution. Solute, which is 50 ml, plus the solvent, which is also another 50 ml, and then multiply it by 100, 100, 100, ang lalabas ay 50. So that means you've got 50% volume per volume ng sulfuric acid. And by the way, sulfuric acid is H2SO4. Okay, so 50% volume per volume ng ating sulfuric acid, H2SO4. Okay, so that would be the final answer for item number 5. Item number 5 is a problem that concerns your percent volume per volume, and in this case, we have 50% volume per volume ng ating sulfuric acid or H2SO. Okay? So that's it for item number 5. Okay? However, a similar problem is seen on item number 6. Ano naman ang meron sa item number 6 natin? Kanina, we had the percent volume per volume. This time, we have the percent weight per weight. Okay, let's try to look at item number 6 natin. Okay, so let's try to look at item number 6. Okay, we have this one. Okay, item number 6. What is the percent weight per weight? If you mix 30 grams ng hydrochloric acid or HCl with 70 grams of water. Uy, parehas silang grams. Grams would be a unit for weight. So therefore, grams would go on the numerator. Grams din dapat ang nasa denominator. Okay? Let's try to establish the formula. Ano bang formula ng percent weight per weight natin? As the name suggests, percent weight per weight. Weight goes on the numerator, weight goes on the denominator. And parang kagaya lang naman din to kanina. Yun nga lang, instead of using ml, you will now be using grams. Grams ng solute pa rin ang nasa numerator at i-divide pa rin natin siya with the grams of the solution. And again, pag sinabing solution, don't just put the solvent in there, ha? Solvent plus the solute yan dapat. Okay, so solvent plus the solute, and you have to multiply it with 100 kasi this is expressed in percent. Okay, this is expressed in percent. Okay, so in this case, try natin. Sino nga pala magiging solute at sino nga pala magiging solvent natin? Okay, again, water is the universal solvent, so we will have to use this as the solvent. At sino magiging solute natin? Si hydrochloric acid. Okay, so hydrochloric acid will serve as your solute. Water will serve as your solvent. So let's try to put it into the equation. Grams ng solute natin, we have 30 grams. I-divide doon natin sa grams ng solution, combination ng solvent, which is water, and ng ating solute, which is 30. Hydrochloric acid. Multiply with 100. 100 din to. 100 din to. Ang may iwan ay 30, so that would give us 30. 30% weight per weight of hydrochloric acid or HCl. Okay, so with that, ang final answer natin to item number 6. Item number 6 will be equivalent to 30%. 30% weight per weight ng ating hydrochloric acid or HCl. Again, HCl is hydrochloric acid. Okay, kailangan familiar pa rin kayo sa pagsusulat ng mga formula. Okay, kasi minsan hindi siya nakalagay. Tapos hahanapin mo yung molecular weight, yung mga ganyan. Okay, so in this case, final answer, 30% weight per weight of the hydrochloric acid or HCl. Okay, so that's it for item number 6 natin. What about item number 7? Now, ingat kayo with this one, ha? Item number 7 ang madalas nag-a-appear pag board exam. There are already several recall questions about this, kaya make sure to keep in mind item number 7. Okay, let's try to look at item number 7. Medyo kakaiba to. Iba kasi yung unit sa numerator sa unit nung nasa denominator. Okay, basahin muna natin si item number 7. Okay, let's try to look at item number 7. We have this one. Okay, ito. Item number 7. Okay? If 1 gram of potassium iodide, by the way, potassium iodide is Ki, Ki is used to make up to a total volume of 100 ml, calculate the percent weight per volume. Hindi ko alam kung may unit yung 100 dyan, pero kung wala, paki-insert na lang. 100 ml. Yan dapat. Okay, 100 ml, calculate the percent weight per volume. Okay? So how do we solve this one? Ingat kayo, medyo kakaiba to, ha? So iba to dun sa dalawang nauna natin kanina. This time, we're dealing with the percent weight per volume. Uy, weight ang nasa numerator, volume ang nasa denominator. So dito, sino ilalagay natin sa numerator? Weight daw. So kapag weight, grams yan. So ilalagay natin sa numerator ay grams ng solute. Grams ng solute, i-divide natin with the volume daw. So pag volume, ml. Pero ingat, ml of the solution na to. Pero minsan kapag solvent lang ang binigay, you can just directly use the volume of the solvent. So again ha, dito kasi total solution na yung binigay. Ang total volume kasi na binigay ay 100. We will just have to directly use the 100. Pero just in case na solvent lang ang binigay, for example, naka-specify 100 ml ng water. 100 ml ng water, yung 100 ml lang din ang ilalagay ninyo. Huwag niyo siyang i-add ha. Huwag niyong gagawing 101. Ma'am, bakit? Hindi ba dapat total solution? Solute plus solvent. Hindi ba namin idadagdag yung 100 at saka 1? For example lang, kunwari given ay 100 ml of water. Hindi ba namin i-add yung 1 sa potassium iodide? Kasi 'di ba pag total solution, solute at saka solvent, kung ang solvent ko ma'am ay 100 ml ng water, am I not supposed to add the 1 gram of the potassium iodide? Are we supposed to do that? The answer is no. Hindi mo sila pwedeng i-add ha. Bakit? Magkaibang unit. Huwag kayong mag-a-add ng magkaibang unit ha. Remember, grams yung potassium iodide mo. Tapos kunwari ang nakalagay dito 100 ml ng water. ML yon. Hindi mo pwedeng i-add yung 100 ml at yung 1 gram. Magkaibang unit yan. So just in case na ang binigay sa inyo ay 100 ml ng water, dito ang ilalagay mo lang sa denominator ay yung 100 ml lang. Pwede mong gamitin yung volume lang mismo ng solvent, pero dito kasi total volume na yung binigay. So might as well as use the total volume ng ating solution, 100 ml na. Pero just in case na water ang binigay, as is lang siya, water lang ang ilalagay mo. Solvent lang ang ilalagay mo. And don't forget to multiply it by 100 ha, so that you can express it in percent. Again, wag niyong i-add ha. Wag niyong i-add kasi magkaibang unit yan. Magkaibang, excuse me, magkaibang unit yan. So, wag na wag siyang i-add. Taka, time out lang. Okay. Okay. Nahirinan pa. Okay, so, dito magkaibang unit yan, so wag na wag niyo siya i-add. At saka, okay lang ba yun, ma'am, kahit di namin siya i-add? Is that really okay? Pwede ba yun, kahit di siya i-add? Teka, time out lang ulit. Pasensya na, nasa mid pa nga. Okay, ano yung tanong ko? Hindi ba talaga pwedeng combine? Okay lang ba yun, ma'am? Kahit hindi ko ba talaga sila i-combine? Well, actually, okay lang ha. Bakit? Kasi, etong solute mo, matutunaw din yan. Madi-dissolve din yan dun sa solvent. It really wouldn't change the total volume. Hindi talaga siya greatly makakaapekto. Kasi itong solute mo, it will already get dissolved na kapag minix mo siya dun sa solvent. So, as is lang siya. Kung 100 ml ng water ang binigay, use it as it is, 100 ml ng solvent. Pero dito, since total volume naman ang binigay, ito na yung gagamitin natin. Okay? So, hindi mo siya kailangang i-add ha, kasi magkaibang unit yan. So, try nga natin. Okay, so try natin in here. Grams ng solute, 1 gram yung ating potassium iodide. Ang total volume ay 100 ml. Multiply daw natin with 100 so that you can express it in percent. Cancel them out, 100s. Ang lalabas ay 1%. 1% weight per volume ng Ki or potassium iodide. Okay, so that would be the concentration sa item number 7 natin. So item number 7, we have 1% weight per volume. Weight per volume ng potassium iodide or Ki for sure. Okay, so again ha, ingat kayo with this one kasi minsan dyan confuse yung mga student. You can use either the total volume of the solution or kung solvent lang yung binigay, you can just simply use the ml of the solvent. No need to add the volume of the solute kasi hindi naman naka-volume yung solute natin. Naka-grams kasi yung solute natin. Kaya hindi natin siya pwedeng i-add. Okay? Pero all in all, for item number 7, the final answer will be 1. 1% weight per volume ng potassium iodide. Okay? So aside from this, ilan pa sa mga concentration-related na questions natin would be item number 8. And for item number 8, this is a problem concerning the molarity. And yung sumunod sa kanya, item number 9, same yung given. Okay, same yung given, pero sa item number 9, ang pinapahanap sa atin ay normally. Okay, so let's try to look at molarity and normality. So determine the molarity daw using the following data or data. We have the mass of your sodium hydroxide, which is 120 grams. We have the molecular weight of the sodium hydroxide, which is 40. And the total volume of the solution, 750 ml. So first things first, how do we compute? Or how do we calculate for the molarity natin? So laging tatandaan, molarity. Molarity, by the way, is otherwise known as moles per liter. Okay, big letter M or the molarity is also known as moles per liter. Okay, otherwise express as moles per liter yan. Okay, ano nga pala ang formula ng molarity natin? Molarity, ingat kayo sa unit ha, is equivalent to the grams. Grams of solute. Grams of solute, i-divide daw natin with the molecular weight of your solute times, ingat kayo sa unit, liter. Liter of the solution. And unfortunately, pag tinatanong to sa exam, kadalasan naka-ml pa yung ating solution. Kaya don't forget to convert ha. Iko-convert nyo muna to, kailangan natin ay liter ng solution. So watch out for the units ha. Grams ng solute dapat yung nasa numerator, nasa denominator, molecular weight times the liter of the solution. Okay, so times the liter of the solution. Okay, so dito, ano ba ang equivalent nito sa liter? Kung i-convert natin yan, remember, 1 liter is equivalent to 1,000 ml. So pag kinonvert natin yan, ang lalabas ay 0.75 liters. So ito na yung gagamitin natin ha. Okay, gamitin nyo lang tong conversion factor para makuha natin si 0.75 liters. Okay, substitute nga natin. Ilan daw yung grams ng solute natin? The grams of the solute is 120. 120, i-divide daw natin with the molecular weight. And buti rito, binigay na yung molecular weight. Okay, binigay na si molecular weight, so hindi natin kukomputin. Nakalagay na siya 40. Multiply with the liter of the solution. And again, kinonvert muna natin yung ml into liter. 750 ml is the same as 0.75 liters. So this would now be the working equation. So what are we supposed to do? 120 on the numerator divided by 40 times 0.75. What's 0.75 times 40? That would give us 30. 0, 0, 12 over 3, and what is 12 divided by 3? That would give us 4. So therefore, final answer is 4. 4 molars or 4 moles per liter. Okay, so therefore, this would be the final answer for item number 8. Okay, so for item number 8, we have 4 molars or 4 moles per liter. However, yung totoo, madalas ba natin ginagamit yung moles per liter? Madalas ba natin ginagamit yan, si moles per liter? Hindi. Ang madalas nating ginagamit ay millimoles per liter. Tama ba? Di ba ang madalas natin ginagamit, for example, sa glucose, di ba ang SI unit ng glucose ay millimoles per liter? Bihira nating makita sa laboratory, sa chemistry ha. Bihira nating gamitin sa laboratory, sa chemistry department, sa clinical chemistry department, etong moles per liter. Usually, ang ginagamit natin ay millimoles per liter. So, ma'am, how do we calculate the millimoles per liter? Total, ma'am, yan yung madalas natin ginagamit sa laboratory, di ba? So, how do we calculate the millimoles per liter? Uy, ano napansin yung difference niya? Yung milli, nalagyan siya ng milli no, sa unahan, sa numerator. Naglagay ka ng milli sa unahan ng moles per liter, nilagay mo siya sa numerator. And remember, equal sign. Pag sinabing equal sign, everything has to be balanced. Whatever you did on the left side, you have to do the same exact thing on the right side. So kung nag-add ka ng milli sa numerator ng left side of the equation, equal sign, dapat balanse, maglalagay ka rin ng milli sa numerator ng right side of the equation. So therefore, how do we calculate the millimoles per liter? Simple lang, you just have to use milligrams of the solute. Milligrams of the solute. Instead of the grams, you will be using milligrams. And may magbabago ba sa denominator? Wala. Walang magbabago ha sa denominator. Molecular weight pa rin, multiplied pa rin by the liter. Liter pa rin ha of the solution. Okay? Uy, ma'am, sigurado kang walang magbabago sa denominator? Dito lang ba natin babaguhin? Numerator lang ba? Ang lalagyan natin ng milli? Hindi ba natin gagawing ml to, ma'am? Are we not supposed to use or to convert this into ml? The answer is no, 2 reasons. Una, may nagbago ba sa denominator mo? Wala. Liter pa rin to, oh. Therefore, as is to. Liter pa rin yan. Kasi millimoles per liter. Liter pa rin siya. So, dapat liter pa rin ang nasa denominator mo. Second reason, hindi mo to pwedeng gawing milli. Why? Kasi may milli sa taas. Ano mangyayari pag naglagay ka ng milli sa baba? Uy, may magkamukha. Magkamukha sa taas? Magkamukha. Ano nga nangyayari pag may magkamukha sa taas, magkamukha sa baba? May milli sa taas, may milli sa baba. What happens? They would get canceled out. And ano mangyayari pag na-cancel out? Babalik ka sa dati. Babalik ka sa grams over the liter. Babalik ka sa dati. Ang tanong, gusto mo pa bang bumalik sa dati? Pinalitan mo nga, di ba? Kasi ayaw mo na siyang balikan. Pinalitan mo nga kasi ayaw mo na sa kanya. So, therefore, wag niyong gagawing milli itong nasa denominator ka kasi it beats the purpose. Babalikan lahat sa dati kapag ginawa mong milli itong nasa denominator. So, ano lang ang papalitan talaga natin? Yung nasa numerator lang. Yung nasa numerator lang. After all, ang binago mo lang naman sa left side ay numerator. Therefore, life has to be fair. Ang papalitan mo lang sa right side is yung nasa numerator lang. Kaya naman, ano pala yung formula ng millimoles per liter natin? Millimoles per liter is just a modified version of the original. Remember, ito yung original na formula natin. Ito yung original na formula ng molarity. Maglalagay ka lang ng milli sa numerator, both in the left and in the right side of the equation, makukuha mo na yung millimoles per liter. Okay? Ma'am, kailangan ba talaga alam namin yan? Well, yes. Ito kasi yung madalas na ginagamit natin sa laboratory eh. Mas common na ginagamit to sa laboratory kaysa sa moles per liter. Okay? So therefore, try to be familiar with how we compute the millimoles per liter. Pero nanggaling din naman yan sa original na formula ng molarity. Pero dito, since molarity ang pinapahanap sa atin, ang final answer talaga ay 4. 4 moles per liter. Okay, pinakita lang natin to kasi ito yung ginagamit natin sa laboratory. Ito yung mas madalas nating na-encounter sa actual practice. Okay, so that is how we calculate the molarity. So again, final answer for item number 8 will be 4 molars or 4 moles per liter. Okay, so I hope clear naman to. Minsan kasi nako-confuse na yung mga students kapag may math nang involve. Okay, pero actually wag niyo nang kakalimutan na kapag equal sign, whatever you did on the left side, you have to do the same exact thing on the right side. Okay, kailangan daw kasi balance. Okay, everything has to be balanced. Okay, so therefore that's for item number 8. What about the next item natin? Item number 9. Okay, item number 9. Okay, let's try to look at, sorry, lumabas yung answer. Item number 9 natin, ito na lang. Item number 9, we have this one. Okay, determine this time the normality. This time ha, normality ang pinapahanap sa atin. Pero same naman yung information, no? 120 grams pa rin, 40 pa rin yung molecular weight, tsaka 750 ml pa rin yung volume ng ating solution. So we're being asked to calculate the normality. Now, ano bang difference pala ng molarity sa normality? Okay, ano bang difference nila? Alam niyo ba na si normality kamukhang-kamukha niya si molarity, okay? Si normality, halos kamukhang-kamukha niya si molarity. By the way, ano nga pala yung other way of expressing the normality? Si molarity kasi ay moles per liter. Si normality ay EQ per liter. Okay, so EQ per liter is another way of expressing the normality. Okay, so how do we get the normality nga pala? Kamukha niya lang si molarity. Grams pa rin ang nasa numerator. Grams ng solute goes on the numerator. I-divide mo pa rin sa molecular weight. Tapos, liter pa rin ha? Liter pa rin ng solution. However, meron pa tayong idadagdag. Okay? Yung molecular weight pala ha, kapag normality, the molecular weight must be first divided with the valence. Ito yung critical point of difference ng molarity sa normality. Kapag normality, merong valence. Kapag molarity, walang valence na involved. Okay, so therefore, ito yung pinaka-point of difference. It looks exactly the same as molarity. Huwag nyo lang kakalimutan yung over the valence kapag normality. Okay, try nga natin. I-substitute natin yung given on the equation. Grams ng solute natin, 120 grams of solute goes on the numerator. Molecular weight is 40. The liter of the solution, 0.75 pa rin yan. 0.75 liters. However, i-divide daw natin to with the valence. Now, the question is, teka, how do we get the valence? How do we get the valence? The fastest way to get the valence is by looking at the subscript of the first element. Okay, so pinakamabilis na paraan sa paghanap ng valence ay hanapin mo lang daw yung subscript ng first element. Like for example, sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide, ito yon si NaOH. Sodium hydroxide is your NaOH. First element ay sodium. Sodium, wala namang subscript yung sodium, ma'am. So pag walang subscript, that is automatically equivalent to 1. So therefore, ang valence ng sodium hydroxide ay 1. Let's take another example. Sulfuric acid. What is the valence of sulfuric acid? Remember, sulfuric acid is H2SO4. Subscript of the first element is hydrogen. Hydrogen, meron siyang subscript na 2. Therefore, the valence of your sulfuric acid will be 2. Another one, recall question, phosphoric acid. Phosphoric acid is H3PO4. H3PO4, that means subscript of the first element. The first element is hydrogen. The subscript thereof is 3. Therefore, the valence is 3. Therefore, ano pala yung kailangan para malaman natin ang valence? Kailangan alam nyo pa rin kung paano isulat yung mga chemical formula na mga substances natin. But don't worry, pagdating naman ng board exam, yung mga ginagamit naman nilang example are the typical chemicals that we use in the laboratory. So make sure familiar kayo sa mga usual chemicals na ginagamit natin sa laboratory. For example, si potassium hydroxide, si hydrochloric acid, yung ating nitric acid, okay, yung ating ano pa ba? Sodium hydroxide, ayan si sodium hydroxide, sulfuric acid, H2SO4. Okay, so yung mga ganyan. Try to be familiar with the typical chemicals. NaCl, sodium chloride, yung mga typical chemicals that we use in the laboratory. Don't worry, hindi naman sila maglalabas ng mga rubidium, cesium, lanthanum, mga out of this world na chemical. Don't worry. Hindi naman sila maglalabas ng ganon. Yung mga typical na chemicals that we use in the laboratory. No? Try to be familiar with how you write them down chemically para madali niyong malaman si valence. Pero going back to the main issue, subscript of the first element is sodium. Wala siyang subscript. Pag walang subscript, that's automatically equivalent to 1. So that would still give us what? 120 over 40 times 0.75. This would still give us 120 over 3. That would still give us 4. Pero this time, ano nang unit natin? 4 normal. 4 normals or 4 EQ per liter. So question, based on this, is it possible for your molarity to be equivalent to normality? Possible ba na maging iisa ang value ni molarity at normality? Yes. Granted na ang valence mo should be equivalent to what? It should be equivalent to 1. Kaya napansin nyo, si item number 8 at item number 9, parehas 4 ang lumabas. It is possible for normality to be equivalent to molarity. Basta ang valence ay 1. Pero kapag hindi 1 ang valence, hindi sila magiging equal. Okay? Pero para madaling mag-compute, no, possible na ang molarity and normality ay maging equal, granted na ang valence mo ay equal to. Okay? Pero either way, final answer natin for this one will be 4 normals, 4 EQ per liter. However, madalas bang ginagamit si EQ per liter sa actual practice? No. Usually, ang ginagamit natin, ang kadalasang ginagamit natin ay si milli. Milli EQ per liter. Ano yung naaalala niyong analyte na gumagamit ng milli-EQ per liter? Well, ginagamit to sa electrolytes, di ba? Ginagamit to sa sodium, sa chloride, milli-EQ per liter. So, ma'am, how do we calculate the milli-EQ per liter? Uy, naglagay ka na naman ng milli sa numerator na naman. Equal sign. So, ano gagawin mo? Everything has to be balanced. Whatever you did on the left side, you need to do the same exact thing on the right side. So therefore, how do we calculate the milli-EQ per liter? Paano daw pala natin i-compute yan? Simple lang. Gagawin mo lang milligrams. Milligrams ng solute. May magbabago ba sa denominator? Wala. Wala ulit magbabago sa denominator, ha? Molecular weight pa rin yan over the valence at liter pa rin ng solution. Hindi magbabago yung denominator, ang magbabago lang ay numerator. Milli-EQ per liter, gagawin mo siyang milligrams ng solute. Milligrams ng solute, pero liter pa rin, ha? Liter pa rin ang nasa denominator. Kaya ko to pinakita kasi may connected na recall question dito. May connected na recall question. Dati kasi pinakompute yung milli-EQ per liter. Kaya you have to be familiar with this particular formula. Pero again, galing din naman yan sa original. Ang original na formula natin ay EQ per liter, nilagyan mo lang ng milli sa numerator, kaya naglagay ka lang din ng milli sa numerator sa right side of the equation. Okay, so ito yung modified version ng ating normality. This time, we will be using milli-EQ per liter, milligrams ng solute over the same denominator. Molecular weight over the valence times the liter of the solution. And ingat kayo ha, kadalasan kasi talaga ml ang nilalabas nila. Okay, kaya naman, make sure that you know how to convert one into the other. Okay? So yan yung difference ng molarity sa normality, and the major point of difference ha, lies on the valence. Kaya make sure that you know how to get the valence. Valence is usually equivalent to the subscript of the first element natin. Okay, so yun yung paraan on how we compute the molarity and the norm. Okay? However, meron pa tayong mga remaining items no, pagdating dyan sa ating calculation. So, natapos lang tayo sa item number 9. Medyo mabibitin kasi tayo kapag uumpisahan natin yung next na question. Medyo complicated kasi yung next na question natin, si item number 10. Okay, so medyo complicated yan. Pero pag-uusapan na lang natin yan on the next na session natin. So, we'll try to talk about the remaining laboratory mathematics na problem natin. So, we still have, I think, around 11 remaining lab math na items. And then, after that, makakapag-start na tayo sa mga analytes natin. Particularly, we'll tackle the 3 major analytes, the carbohydrates, the lipids, and the proteins natin. Okay? Any questions so far with what we have discussed? Any question? Violent reaction. Violent reaction. Pero I do hope wala namang violent reaction. Pero either way, if may questions kayo, example, iba yung nakita nyo or nabasa nyo to a particular book sa nabanggit ko during the discussion, please feel free to send me an email. Yung email ko nasa notes nyo naman yata. So in case na may problem, discrepancy, no? Okay, merong conflict of interest or conflict or differences no with what I have mentioned sa na-mention sa inyo or na-mention sa nabasa nyo sa libro, ganyan. Please feel free to inform me para ma-share ko kung ano yung naging reference ko. Okay, para maging aware na rin ako no, na iba pala yung sinabi sa ganito, sa sinabi ni ganyan. Yan kasi yung mahirap sa mga libro. Iba-ibang libro, iba-ibang references, minsan iba-iba sila na sinasabi. Okay, minsan nga, same na libro, magkaibang edition lang, magkaiba pa rin ang sinasabi. Yung mga ganong moment. Okay, kaya please feel free to send me an email in case that you find any discrepancy dun sa ating materials. Okay, pero either way, that would be all for today. I'll be seeing you next week. Okay, for the continuation of the discussion natin. Okay, thank you so much everyone, and kailan po yung quiz natin? Yung quiz ang hindi ko sure. I'm sorry. Okay, hindi ako aware about the quiz. Okay. Sorry. Sorry, hindi ako na-inform na may quiz. Okay, kaya hindi ko masasagot yan. I'm sorry. I think I'll have to leave that to the facilitators. Okay. About the quiz. Sorry ha, hindi ko alam kung paano yung quiz. Hindi ko alam kung ano yung quiz. Wala kasi nabanggit sa akin about the quiz eh. Sorry. Okay, teka. Ask natin si sir kung merong info about the quiz. Okay, pero definitely wala sa akin. Wala sa akin, no. Ay, and August 28 daw. Okay. Yung quiz. August 28 daw yung quiz. Ayan. August 28. Anyways, ano ba August 28 natin? Okay, pero either way yun lang, okey yun lang for now. Thank you so much, pasensya na na-extend tayo ng konti, okey. Pero yun lang, thank you so much and I'll see you next week 'no, for the continuation of the discussion. Okay, thank you, and see you next week.
This